Danny talked to me early on about England, about the beauty of England, the rural beauty. It looks like something out of a romantic painting from the early 19th century. It's just breathtaking up here. And we've been lucky enough to build our Bone Temple in an extraordinary location in North Yorkshire, in a sort of cleft of meadows that are adjacent to a river, and across the river is a wood. And I think that's a factor of the film, is the proximity to nature.
Do you know the words memento mori?
No.
It means remember death.
We wanted to create something that felt rooted in the history of Britain. So we were looking a lot at images of Neolithic henges and the idea of creating something that has a real architectural discipline to it and that also speaks to a sense of time.
The Bone Temple went through a lot of iterations before we kind of landed on this particular design. You know, Danny very much wanted to have it outside in nature. So we kind of were given a mandate to go hell for leather with the kind of scale. There's 1,000 uprights. All of the bones on the uprights are all individually cast. All of the skulls are as well. There's something like 5,500 skulls, 250,000 individual bones. So yeah, the Bone Temple from start to finish took 6 months to produce.
The work that's gone into creating it is really remarkable, especially when you're creating a world from scratch. This has come from someone's mind, and the kind of energy and creativity that has to go into that. It's been really inspiring.
It's a fantastic design by Gareth and Carson. I was very impressed by the depth of their detail and their imagination. That's what I loved about the first 28 days later, which the real thought had gone into, well, how are people surviving now without everything? And I think we did it on this. I really believe this. I feel this is someone's really thought through this world.
You have a responsibility, if you return to this idea, to try and produce ideas within it that are fresh and different and new and original. And I think the idea of Kelson's memorial to those who've been destroyed by the infection, it's a beautiful thing. I think some of it came out of COVID, and it's very moving.
There is something about this location that it feels as though it's been here for a really long time. When we saw it on the monitor, it was like, this is insane. Like, you really feel it in each frame. It's more than you could ever imagine it would be. The scene where Spike climbs the spire, it was just so emotionally intense.
First you think, this is so weird, and then you gradually begin to see that it's something actually very beautiful and very unusual in this kind of movie.
It's new life. The new day begins.
And in fact, you hand over 20 minutes of the film, when in this kind of movie, it's normally a trigger for carnage, and you hand it over to this rather beautiful memorial for those we've lost.
Love you, Mum.
And cut. That's the performance. It's beautiful. Absolutely glorious.
In this kind of movie, you're looking for those images that will terrify people. There's a visceral element to cinema where you have a responsibility to push the envelope as far as you can go, really. In this film, we used a number of different techniques and a lot of different cameras, and it felt like a simple way of trying to capture something out of reach of the conventional technology.
I think what Danny brings to this genre is definitely an element of reality.
It's a very magical opening to it, isn't it?
I also think he's incredibly innovative. Something that really struck me when I watched the first movie was the camera work and the relationship that the camera seemed to be having with the characters and the story.
The first film had been shot on domestic cameras, and it felt like, for an apocalypse, curiously appropriate that you don't have the big conventional cameras available. So on this film, we used many different kinds of cameras and lots of iPhones.
Danny had pretty early on the idea that it was to be shot radically, and he mentioned the idea of smartphones. Any film I do with him is a challenge. That's absolutely fine by me. So we started investigating how to make smartphones work in this kind of projects.
Anthony Dodmantle, who shot the first film. He's an incredibly important collaborator and who's worked with Danny a bunch of times and a fantastic artist. And I think that relationship between the director and the cameraman is one of the most important things in filmmaking, and the way they work together is fantastic.
He has the same energy as Danny. They're just like enthusiastic, buoyant energy, and I love that. And shooting on these iPhones have allowed for such a different atmosphere. It becomes a bit more intimate in a weird way. Like, I felt incredibly vulnerable at first, but I think it's allowed for us to capture something that's a bit more raw.
There was incredible benefits to shooting on a small gadget. It's lightweight, it's handy, it's something we all know, but this was a bigger challenge than normal because I had to work out a way of finding lenses that could sit on iPhones and bring that quality of cinematic imagery.
We are shooting on iPhone 15 Pros. We have a variety of lenses. Some of them really do have proper cinema lenses on it, and it's taken them weeks and weeks to develop it. So it's not quite as simple as just pick up an iPhone and shoot, but they just give you a bit more freedom and you can just stick them anywhere.
We use many different kinds of cameras. We have the amazing drone operator who we used as well, because some of the locations were so tricky to access that you could only get the actors in and a drone in. And we tried to be as lightweight and flexible as possible with them.
We've pretty much been involved in every scene. Normally we were dropping in and out of projects, we do days here and there, but there's just been a requirement for drone from the usual stuff, the high up stuff, but then really down, you know, skimming the grass, we're flying in and out in the woods, and you really come up with ideas that you'd never imagined you'd be attempting to do with the drone.
It's been really unique. And then there's also that they've built these new rigs where you've got this sort of matrix effect in all these action sequences, and they can move this thing that captures something from over here all the way over here, so you can kind of come swiftly move all the... Do you know what? They'll tell you, because it's really complex.
It's based on an older concept from films like The Matrix. They did something similar, but they did it in a very different way. Essentially, it's multiple cameras set up in an arc. They're all recording at the same time, and what they're going to do in post-production is they'll quickly cut between them, and you've got that freedom to move around and, you know, wrap the subject, really kind of feel the action in the scene.
It's a poor man's version of bullet time, really, which gives you the ability to create an almost 3D sensation of the impact of the arrows at various points. And another scene when Eric meets his end at the hands of Samson, that you use this kind of bullet time idea.
In a cinematic way, it's Danny and Anthony sort of breaking another boundary, and I think that's bold. I think that's bold filmmaking.
I've been fortunate enough to work with Danny for many, many years, and I've always embraced his ideas. To a certain extent, you could say on this film, we haven't taken ourselves to the easier places. Loads of issues that, sure, are restrictive or challenging. We had the same thing with 28 Days Later, and out of that kind of energy, I think something interesting exists.
28 Days Later connected with people around the world to an extraordinary degree. And so you have certain obligations to the fans, who are the reason you're here making another one, but you have a responsibility to make sure that you're contributing something new as well. And I want people to have an intense visual experience.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. Joblo remains an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.